The storm didn't begin with lightning or thunder. It began in the quiet moments, when Luke Harrison walked past his wife Natalie Foster in the hallway without even glancing, when she brewed coffee for two but poured only one, when night stretched between them like a cold river they no longer dared to cross. Their marriage had once been a home filled with laughter and late-night confessions, but now it was a house of silent meals, untouched gifts, and two people who slept inches apart yet miles away inside their hearts. And on a gray Tuesday morning, Luke realized something terrifying. He couldn't remember the last time Natalie smiled at him, not politely, not to a stranger, but a real smile meant for him. That realization struck him harder than any argument ever had. Something inside him whispered that this wasn't just a rough patch. This was the beginning of the end. If you believe small acts of kindness and second chances can save people, please make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. It really helps stories like this reach more hearts. Luke never thought marriage could fade like this. He had always been the hopeful one, the guy who believed love could survive anything if two people were determined enough. But lately, determination felt like a luxury he didn't have. Work consumed him, responsibilities piled up, and the world seemed to demand a piece of him every time he tried to find peace. Natalie, on the other hand, carried her exhaustion in her eyes, in the way she folded laundry slowly, in how she stood at the window longer than necessary, staring at nothing as if waiting for life to give her a sign. They were both drowning, but neither reached for the other. Their home in a quiet suburban street in the United States still looked perfect from the outside, but inside lived the weight of unspoken resentments. The chipped mug Luke had never replaced, the forgotten anniversary Natalie never mentioned, the bills that seemed to multiply, and the growing distance between their hearts. On weekends, they used to drive toward the coast just to watch the waves crash and remind themselves that life was big enough for their dreams. Now weekends became escape zones, Luke buried in work emails, Natalie busying herself with chores that didn't need doing. Even the air in the house felt different, heavy, as if holding its breath. One evening, while rain tapped gently against the windows, Natalie sat alone at the dining table tracing circles on the wooden surface. She wondered when she and Luke had stopped being teammates. It wasn't one specific fight that broke them. It was the little cuts, his forgetfulness, her silence, his exhaustion, her loneliness. It was the slow erosion, the steady loss, the feeling of being unseen and unheard. She knew Luke loved her. She could still feel it somewhere buried deep. But love wasn't what you felt. It was what you did. And lately, they weren't doing anything to save what they had. Luke, upstairs in the bedroom, stood staring at their wedding picture. They looked so young there, sunlight behind them, future ahead of them, hope in their smiles. He remembered promising Natalie that he'd always make her feel safe, supported, cherished. But the truth was, he'd let life consume him until she became a background ache in his heart, important, irreplaceable, but neglected. And as he stared at that picture, he wondered if he had already lost her without realizing it. The turning point didn't come from a dramatic fight or a shocking revelation. It came from something deceptively small. That week, Natalie fell sick, not dangerously, but enough that her body felt weak and her mind foggy. Usually she pushed through illnesses without complaining, but this time she quietly curled into bed and let the day swallow her. Luke noticed she wasn't up early. The sound of the coffee machine never echoed through the kitchen. Her voice never floated through the hallway. For the first time in months, he felt the weight of her absence, like a suffocating blanket. He walked into the bedroom expecting to find her scrolling through her phone, trying to distract herself. But when he saw her pale, curled up, breathing softly, something inside him cracked open. It wasn't guilt, it was recognition. He had been so caught up in his own storms that he forgot she had storms too. He forgot she had needs. He forgot she was human and fragile. He forgot she needed him. Without thinking, he walked to the kitchen and made her tea the way she liked it, lightly sweet, no lemon. He found her favorite blanket, still smelling faintly of lavender. He folded laundry she'd left half done. He even cleaned the kitchen counters she always reminded him about. These were tasks he should have done before, but this time he did them not out of obligation, but out of something deeper. A quiet, earnest desire to show her she wasn't alone. When Natalie woke to find the warm tea on her nightstand, the folded blanket, and the room tidier than before, her chest tightened with a feeling she hadn't felt in months. Someone had cared for her. Someone had seen her without her asking to be seen. Someone remembered her small preferences. Someone tried. That was when the air between them shifted, not dramatically, but like a seedling pushing through hard soil. Luke came home early that day, something he hadn't done in months, and though they barely exchanged words, she saw the softness in his eyes when he asked if she needed anything. The question was simple, but after months of emotional drought, it felt like rain. Over the next few days, Luke made small efforts, none of them glamorous or grand, just human and gentle. He washed the dishes, he warmed soup. He left a little note on the kitchen counter before leaving for work. "Take it easy today. I'm here if you need me." Natalie held the note to her chest longer than she intended. It wasn't poetry, it wasn't extravagant, but it was sincerity she thought she'd lost. When Natalie finally recovered, something had changed inside her. Not a full restoration, but a softened corner, a tender reminder of who Luke once was, and maybe still could be. She found herself observing him the way she used to, how he ran his hand through his hair when stressed, how he paused before speaking when he was trying to be gentle, how he looked tired but not indifferent. Yet the biggest shift wasn't in Luke or Natalie, it was in the space between them. Kindness, as small as it seemed, had cracked open a door they'd both thought was sealed shut. Weeks passed, and one evening, after a long day, Natalie surprised Luke by lighting a candle at the dinner table, not for celebration, but for atmosphere, for softness, for connection. Luke noticed it immediately, that subtle warmth, that little attempt she made without saying anything. He felt the gratitude rise in his chest like a sunrise. Slowly, they began rebuilding, not with dramatic declarations, but with small, consistent acts that told the truth of their hearts. Natalie started making Luke's favorite pasta again, not because she had to, but because she wanted him to feel cared for. Luke started taking walks with her in the evenings, not rushing through them, but listening when she shared how her day went. They weren't perfect, and they still stumbled, but now they were stumbling toward each other instead of away. Their conversations became deeper. Their silences became comfortable again. Their eyes met more often. Luke noticed when Natalie laughed. Natalie noticed when Luke relaxed. Their home began to feel warm again, not because the lights were brighter, but because the love was returning, little by little, kindness by kindness. If this story is touching your heart even a little, please take a moment to like, comment, and share. Your engagement truly keeps stories like this alive. Before this story ends, please comment below, "Kindness can change everything." Just those words, to remind someone scrolling by that love can still be repaired. And so, in the quiet ways kindness tends to work, Luke and Natalie's marriage didn't just survive, it transformed. They learned that love isn't maintained by grand gestures, but by small ones, by noticing, by showing up, by choosing each other on the days when choosing is hard. Their home filled with warmth again, laughter slowly returning, trust being rebuilt piece by fragile piece, and although life continued bringing challenges, they now faced them not as two individuals drifting apart, but as partners walking toward each other every day. In the end, their marriage didn't change because fate intervened or because apologies fixed everything overnight. It changed because one small act of kindness reminded them of the truth they had forgotten. Love cannot grow in silence, but it can bloom again, even after long winters when nurtured gently. And that was enough enough to save them, enough to start again, enough to remind them that sometimes the smallest act of kindness is the beginning of an entire second chance.